You're tired, aren't you? Not the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the kind that sits somewhere behind the eyes. The quiet exhaustion of holding the world together. Let me tell you something. There comes a moment in life when the struggle becomes too heavy to bear. Not because the world has grown crueler, but because the illusion that you could hold it all together begins to collapse. And it's strange, isn't it? You've spent years trying to manage everything. Your image, your future, your relationships, your mind. You've tried to force life into a straight line. And yet life, with its divine sense of humor, keeps turning in circles. So one day, quietly, almost accidentally, you let go. Not in defeat, but in exhaustion, in honesty. You let go of pretending to know where it's all going. You stop tightening your grip on tomorrow, and something begins to happen. Something profoundly strange, and yet utterly natural. The first thing you notice when you let go is silence. Not the kind of silence that comes from an empty room, but the one that hums beneath all sound. It's the silence that was always there, waiting patiently beneath your thoughts. When you stop struggling to be somebody, to be right, to be safe, you suddenly hear it, the quiet voice that says, "This is it. You are here. You have always been here." And it feels like the universe exhales through you. That's the first strange thing. The world stops fighting you back. You realize it was never against you. All along, it was your resistance that created the tension. You were like a man wrestling his own reflection in the water. The harder you fought, the rougher the waves became. But now you've stopped, you've softened. And in that surrender, the water clears, and you see yourself, not as an enemy to conquer, but as part of the whole. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means falling into alignment. It means you trust the tide, instead of thrashing against it. And so, the second strange thing happens. Time loosens its grip. You notice that life isn't moving from one thing to another as you thought. There is no race to some final destination. The future loses its fangs. You stop living as a rehearsal for something else. When you let go, the mind no longer cuts reality into slices of before and after. You begin to experience life as one continuous note. Rising, falling, dancing, returning. The pressure to become someone dissolves. Because you see, the idea of becoming is built on the feeling of lack. That who you are now is somehow insufficient. But in the stillness of surrender, you see the absurdity of that idea. You cannot become what you already are. The flower is not racing to bloom. It simply unfolds because the sun is there. And so the present moment, once dismissed as a stepping stone, becomes your home. This exact breath, this exact thought, this exact imperfection becomes sacred. You realize that all along, you were waiting for life to begin. But life was waiting for you to stop running. And that's the second strange thing. Time stops being an enemy. It becomes a friend. Now, as this begins to sink deeper, something even more mysterious happens. Your fears begin to lose their teeth. It's not that you stop feeling fear. No, you still feel it. But you stop being it. You stop identifying with the trembling. You see fear as a shadow cast by the mind's desperate need for control, and when control dissolves, the shadow cannot hold. When you let go, fear has nowhere to take root, because fear feeds on the future, on what if. But you've stopped living in that illusion. You've come home to the only thing that ever was. This moment, this now. And so fear becomes what it truly always was: energy. Not your enemy, not your jailer, but pure movement. It rises, it falls, it passes, like wind through an open field. And you realize something astonishing. You were never afraid of life itself. You were afraid of losing control over it. But now that control is gone, and instead of chaos, you find peace. That's the third strange thing. What you thought would destroy you actually sets you free. Because the end of control is the beginning of trust, and it is an extraordinary thing to trust life again. To wake up each day not with an agenda, but with curiosity. To walk without a map and yet feel guided. To know that even the detours are part of the road. As you begin to trust, something else awakens. The fourth strange thing, you feel lighter. It's as if gravity itself has loosened its hold on you. The things that used to weigh you down, other people's opinions, regrets, ambitions, they begin to lose their importance. You start laughing at things that once broke you. You see how temporary everything is, how beautifully uncertain, and rather than panic, you smile. It's the smile of a man who has finally seen through the game. You no longer need to win, because you see that the entire play was never about victory. It was about experience. Letting go doesn't make you apathetic. It makes you alive. You feel joy without needing a reason. You feel sadness without needing to fix it. You allow everything to come and go, like waves meeting the shore. This is what freedom feels like. Not the freedom to have everything you want, but the freedom to no longer need to. And in that weightlessness, you realize something profoundly simple. You were never carrying life. Life was carrying you. All along, you were like a leaf worrying about the wind. But the wind was never trying to harm you. It was the very thing keeping you aloft. When this realization dawns, something sacred happens inside you. A deep and wordless gratitude. Not gratitude for something, but gratitude as something. You realize that existence itself is a gift beyond measure. That even your struggles, even your losses, were part of a grand symphony. And so, in this lightness, you begin to notice another strange thing. You stop seeking meaning in the old ways. You no longer ask, "What's my purpose?" Because you understand that purpose isn't something the mind can invent. It's something the heart recognizes. You realize that the tree does not question its purpose. It grows, it bends, it falls, it feeds the earth. And in that, it fulfills its role perfectly. You too are part of this unfolding. Your life, with all its seeming mistakes, is the dance of the cosmos expressing itself as you. And when you stop trying to give life meaning, meaning begins to emerge naturally, not as a conclusion, but as a feeling. A deep, quiet ways. That is the fifth strange thing. You stop searching, and yet everything begins to make sense. By now, you might think you've lost everything. Your certainty, your control, your ambitions, all gone. And yet, what's left feels more alive, more real than anything before. It's as if the scaffolding of the false self has fallen away, and what remains is something soft, wild, and infinite. You start to see beauty in the ordinary, in the way sunlight hits a wall, in the laughter of a stranger, in the silence between breaths. Because you've stopped trying to possess the world, you finally see it. You've stepped out of the dream of becoming, and into the wonder of being. And that, my friend, is only the beginning, because when you finally let go, truly let go, there are still two more strange things waiting to unfold. Things so subtle, so luminous, that words can barely hold them. And so you arrive at a place you never intended to reach. Not through effort, but through surrender. Everything you once clung to has quietly slipped away. And yet, what remains is not emptiness in the way you feared. It is vast, luminous, and alive, like space itself has begun to breathe through you. This is the sixth strange thing that happens when you finally let go. Love ceases to be something you do, and becomes what you are. You realize that love was never meant to be earned, possessed, or directed like a spotlight toward one or two lucky souls. It was never the fragile emotion you mistook it for, rising when people pleased you and fading when they didn't. When you let go, love reveals itself as the very fabric of existence, the invisible pulse that moves everything. You look at the trees, and they are not trees anymore. They are expressions of the same life that beats in your chest. You hear the laughter of a stranger, and it echoes as your own joy. You feel the pain of another, and it no longer feels foreign. It is the same current moving through a different body. And in that recognition, compassion ceases to be a moral duty. It becomes a natural response, like breathing. You no longer love because you simply love, without condition, without agenda. It flows through you like water finding its way downhill. This love is not sentimental. It is not the kind that clings or demands or expects. It does not cry out, "I need you." It whispers, "I am you." It's a love that does not divide the world into worthy and unworthy, friend and enemy, success and failure. It embraces all of it. The light and the dark, the beauty and the brokenness. Because it understands that everything belongs. When you let go, the walls around your heart begin to dissolve. You realize they were never protecting you. They were imprisoning you. And with each crack, the world begins to pour in, not as chaos, but as intimacy. The world is no longer something out there. It becomes part of your own being, not in a mystical sense, but in the most ordinary, unmistakable way. You look at the sky and no longer feel small, because now you understand you are not in the universe. The universe is in you. And this love, this unconditional seeing, brings with it an extraordinary peace, because you no longer feel the need to be anything other than what you are. You see that every attempt to improve yourself was like polishing the waves to make the ocean more beautiful. The ocean needs no improvement. It only needs to be seen for what it is. And when you see it, truly see it, something inside you laughs. That's the seventh and final strange thing that happens. When you finally let go, you begin to laugh. Not the laughter of mockery, but the laughter of realization. It is the laughter of someone who has just discovered that the entire chase was a divine game, and that the one who was running was never separate from what they were running toward. You laugh because you see how serious you once were, how tightly you held the reins of your imagined destiny. You laugh because you understand now that there was never anything to hold. All along, life was unfolding perfectly. Even in the moments that felt like disaster, especially in those moments, you see, life hides its treasures in its challenges. Every heartbreak, every failure, every loss, these were not interruptions to your path. They were the path. Each one was a sculptor, shaping you, softening you, preparing you for this very freedom. And now that you see it, you can't help but smile, a quiet, knowing smile. Because the great cosmic joke is this: the moment you stop trying to control life, it gives you everything you ever wanted. Not the things themselves, but the feeling you believed they would bring. Peace, joy, belonging. They were never out there. They were here, waiting for you to stop searching. The seeker was never going to find what it was looking for, because the seeker was the thing being sought. The drop was looking for the ocean, and then one day it realized it was the ocean, dreaming of being small. That's the final awakening, the strange and beautiful end of seeking. You realize that all the running, the worrying, the striving, it was a game life played with itself, for the sheer joy of forgetting and remembering. The hide and seek of consciousness, the infinite pretending to be finite, just to taste the wonder of finding itself again. And so you laugh, gently, lovingly, at the grand design. You laugh because the burden has lifted. You laugh because the meaning you were searching for is the very act of searching itself. Life was never something to figure out. It was always something to feel. The mind was busy trying to solve the mystery, while the heart was quietly living it. And in this laughter, there is immense freedom, because you no longer carry the illusion of me, the me, that needed to prove, to achieve, to control, to be seen. It dissolves into the great rhythm of existence. You become what you always were, the witness, the awareness behind every experience.